Hey everybody, it's GombletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today I'm going to be playing some Historic Brawl with one of my favorite commanders, Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge. Tezzeret has a super fun build around static ability that's going to make all of your creatures and planeswalkers cost X mana less to cast, where X is the number of artifacts you control. With this ability, you get to play a ton of really big creatures and planeswalkers, and as long as you get to casting Tezzeret, you're going to be casting them almost for free. I've cast multiple Ulamogs for free already, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So again, really high mana cost creatures and planeswalkers that have a lot of generic or colorless mana in their casting cost can get cast for super cheap when you have a Tezzeret on the board, so this deck is really built around that. Now you already want to have a ton of artifacts on board for casting your big stuff, so the +2 ability on Tezzeret also ends up draining your opponent for a ton of life, because you're often going to have 4+ artifacts on board, so it's a +2 to shoot your opponent in the face for 4 damage and gain 4 life. Often it'll be even more than that, so the +2 is really good. The -3 gives you some graveyard recursion, and the -8 gives you a nice bonus if you've managed to get Tezzeret up to that 8 loyalty. You just get to dump a bunch of artifacts out of the top 10 cards of your library onto the board for free. So Tezzeret is an absurdly powerful planeswalker. The one big downside to running Tezzeret as your commander is that Tezzeret is a 6 mana commander, so you're not going to be able to cast Tezzeret incredibly early in the game, and sometimes you're not even going to get to resolve Tezzeret. So in matchups where your opponent has good counter spells, stuff like that, you're going to have a really hard time because they know that your 6 mana planeswalker commander is coming later in the game, and they can read the card, they can see that it has an incredibly important ability to stop. So this is not the most competitive Historic Brawl deck ever, but I never really cared about how competitive the Historic Brawl decks are. I really just build them for the fun of doing my own little synergies and stuff. So you're going to have issues against decks with counter spells, because you're going to have a really hard time resolving your 6 mana commander in those kind of matchups. That being said, it's a super fun deck, and we run a ton of cheap mana rocks to help get Tezzeret out early, and if you're in any matchup where you can resolve Tezzeret, you get to do some pretty absurd things the turn you cast Tezzeret, or at the latest, the turn after you cast Tezzeret. So that is the deck idea there. We're going to be using a bunch of cheap artifacts, primarily a lot of cheap mana rocks, but a lot of good cheap utility artifacts like Treasure Map. But then we have all the 2 mana rocks pretty much in the game. A good amount of 3 mana rocks. And some utility artifacts like Foundry Inspector making our next artifacts cheaper. Liberator letting us cast our artifacts as though they had flash. And our colorless spells. This did come to play once. You can cast Ulamog at instant speed. I have cast an instant speed 0 mana Ulamog in the past. Something you can do if you have Liberator on the board. But we also run some cards like Sai that can spit out a bunch of Thopter tokens as we're casting our other artifacts to make our affinity for artifacts even larger. We run Black Market Connections to get those treasure tokens. Those will add to our affinity for artifacts, as well as being a way to cast our Tezzeret a couple turns early. Midnight Clock for more mana rocks. Ethereum Spinner's really nice in the deck. We've got a ton of cards of mana value 4 or greater, and every time we cast one, we're getting another Thopter, adding to our affinity for artifacts yet again. Emry's allowing us to cast our artifacts out of the graveyard. Great utility play. And it's just a lot of the good artifact stuff like that. We of course have Padim, because we're going to have some really massive artifact creatures in this deck. So we're pretty much always going to have the highest mana value artifact on board. So this will let us draw an extra card every single turn. And we do want some card draw in the deck to not run out of stuff to do. And Padim also gives all of our artifacts hexproof, making our opponent have to use removal on Padim to get to be able to use removal on our big artifacts. We've got Metamorph for good utility, another Tezzeret for more good card draw, Archmage for great card draw. We're running every Tezzeret for flavor reasons, but they're all pretty decent in the deck. Most of them provide some amount of good card draw. This Tezzeret gives you some artifact treasure tokens basically off of those Ethereum cells, as well as potential removal with the -2 ability. More mana rocks like Mightstone and Weakstone, Hedron Archive, couple Karns that can be cast for free if you have a Tezzeret on the board, and then of course your good utility stuff that you want in any kind of deck, couple board wipes between Crux of Fate and Languish, and a couple pieces of interaction, the kind of staple counterspells for the format, Tail's End and Wash Away, and some staple removal like Heartless Act and Infernal Grasp. So that is the core of the deck that helps us get to our late game plays. Again, a ton of mana rocks, a little bit of interaction with a couple board wipes and a couple of removal spells and counter spells. But then the big stuff, the stuff you're really excited to do in this deck, is just really big artifacts like Metalwork Colossus you can often cast for free because this costs less with its own ability, plus costs less with Tezzeret on the board. So often just a free 10/10. Ulamog ends up being incredibly cheap quite often. Even just like a 6 mana Ulamog's an incredibly good deal for the amount of value that this card gives you. Hulking Metamorph's another giant artifact creature we can cast for cheap. Sunger Titan is super rude against 5-color decks and we can cast it for cheap. Cityscape Leveler is just a big boss monster from Brothers War. Platinum Angel is a classic high mana cost artifact. Mirror Enforcer actually works as kind of an enabler since it already has affinity for artifacts. We usually get this out cheap early in the game even without Tezzeret on board to help make our other artifacts cheaper. Meteor Golem gives us some removal later in the game for cheap if we have a Tezzeret on board. And because Tezzeret is giving all of our creatures and planeswalkers affinity for artifacts, they don't have to all be artifacts. Those are just the ones that work the best because we can cast them for free if we have 7 artifacts on board, but we're still running a few non-artifact creatures. One of them is going to be Sheoldred. Very, very powerful effect, especially when you have a lot of big creatures in your deck. So if any big creatures die, you're returning something really massive every upkeep. So we are running one of each Praetor. We're running one Sheoldred, the old Sheoldred from New Phyrexia, and then one of the new Jin-Gitaxias, because those are the 2 Praetors that work the best in this deck. Of course, Jin-Gitaxias lets you double any artifacts, instants, and sorceries that you cast. Primarily, we're going to be doubling our first just massive artifact creature we cast each turn. This, of course, also hinders your opponent countering their first artifact, instant, or sorcery each turn. So again, Jin-Gitaxias and Sheoldred, when we have a Tezzeret on board, often going to cost just 2 or 3 mana to get them on board, which is absurd. Then we have Workshop Elders. If we're doing good on our affinity for artifacts, this will be a single blue mana. This gives all of our artifact creatures flying just right off the bat. So our Metalwork Colossus, our Sundering Titan, our Cityscape Leveler, they all jump into the sky. And this lets us start activating some of our mana rocks and our lands, making them 4/4s. We do have all of the artifact lands that are on Arena in this deck to help our affinity, and a good amount of them happen to be indestructible, so being able to turn one of your lands into an indestructible 4/4 flyer is pretty good. We also have 1 or 2 indestructible non-creature artifacts as well, like our Skyclave Relics at 3 mana that are really good to activate with Workshop Elders. We have Thought Monitor, very similar to Mirror Enforcer, more of an enabler card that's not really one of our big late game drops. With that affinity for artifacts, we're often casting this for really cheap, and it is great card draw if you can cast it for like 3 mana or less. We then have Wormcoil Engine, really easy to cast this card for free, and it's just an absurdly good card. Ugin's very easy to cast for free, and makes it so the next spells that we cast become even cheaper, making it even easier to cast 10 mana stuff like Ulamog for free, because now we're getting Tezzeret's affinity for artifacts, and Ugin's cost reduction of 2 additional mana. The one thing I'm sad about with this Ugin here is that the 8 mana Ugin, the very, very powerful one, is banned in Historic Brawl, but I did used to run that card in this deck until it got banned. Liliana, Dreadhorde General, Planeswalkers as well are getting that affinity for artifacts, so Liliana is often just double black for this absurdly powerful Planeswalker. Great stuff there. We then have Shimmer Dragon, giving itself hexproof and letting us tap our other artifacts to draw cards, keeping us fueled. And last but not least, a River's Rebuke for another kind of board wipe sort of piece of interaction. This is a one-sided sort of board wipe. It makes them completely pick up all their cards and have to spend their next turn just putting everything back on the board, River's Rebuke is often just going to win you the game because it just puts your opponent very far behind. So, very fun artifact-focused deck today. Again, there's a lot of ways you can build Tezzeret. You can really build around that life gain effect, trying to play like Aetherflux Reservoir to try to win the game. You can build a Storm version of this deck where every creature in the deck is an artifact creature, or at least a creature that only costs colorless mana. That way you can cast everything for free in one turn all the time. You just need to run more card draw spells if that's what you want to do. But then again, if you're building the Storm version of this deck, you're probably using Aetherflux Reservoir as a Storm win condition, Mind's Desire, maybe Tendrils of Agony. But I've built this deck primarily just around playing a bunch of really big creatures and planeswalkers to keep it as unique as possible from my other artifact-based decks. So that's the deck list for today. Really fun one. We didn't take a look at the mana base, but it's pretty self-explanatory. All of the good utility lands that you would always run, all of the good blue-black mana fixing, not running all of the common tap lands, but pretty much everything else, and then all the good artifact lands and artifact synergy lands. But yeah, that's the deck we're going to be playing today. Without further ado, let's show off the fun things this deck can do as we head into the gameplay. Alright, we do not have our black source, which is pretty awkward, but we can get a Foundry Inspector down turn 3 at minimum off our Guardian Idol. Helps us cast our other spells. This is all really high mana stuff too, though. I think I kind of have to take the free mulligan. It's so tempting when you have the 2 mana Mana Rock, but we've got the black source now, which is very helpful. Treasure Map to scry around, Ethereum Spinner into Hedron Archive's pretty good, or Tezzeret. Yeah, this hand can definitely do some work. So our opponent is on Corlessa, the Scale Singer, so they're going to be on a dragon deck that can just cast spells from the top of their library to get them a ton of, essentially, card draw that way. I'm going to start with our Swamp here. Alright, our Crux of Fate should be pretty sweet in this matchup. Just destroy all dragons if we ever draw into that removal spell. Battlework Colossus is going to be a pretty cheap play later in the game, so that's pretty exciting. Drop the Ethereum Spinner now. Really hoping to draw into a land to play Hedron Archive or Tezzeret next turn. We did keep a 3-land opening hand as long as we hit that 1 land by turn 4. Then we're doing some great stuff. Don't think it's worth scrying in our upkeep before we draw, because then we couldn't afford to cast one of these if it is a land on top. Unfortunate, it's a Skyclave Relic. This is going to be the mana we need, but we don't get to play a 4-drop this turn, which is kind of brutal. I think I'll still just play it here, and then I'm going to scry with Treasure Map, trying to hit more lands rather than playing a Manifold Key. So opponent started with a Risen Reef, which is a pretty great card. It lets them look at the top card of their library. If it's a land, they get it into play tapped, and if it's not, they just draw it. So very good value play. If they have more elementals, it'll be pretty busted, but they are a dragon. They are a dragon-focused commander, so don't expect too many more elementals there. There's the Jade Orb of Dragonkind. Whenever they cast a dragon spell with that, it'll get hexproof till their next turn, so they are going to cast their commander, since Corlessa will have that hexproof. Alright, attack with a Risen Reef, sure. Let's go ahead and scry with the Treasure Map. That is not a land. There we go. We do hit land for turn. We have 5 out of 6 mana for Tezzeret here. As soon as we cast our Tezzeret Commander, we get to cast a Metalwork Colossus. I could play Tezzeret the Schemer and get a 1/1 Thopter and get a treasure token here. Or I could play Hedron Archive and Manifold Key. Play Tezzeret and Manifold Key. The The only way that I guarantee this Tezzeret next turn is getting a treasure token or scrying into a land or getting a mana rock. I guess whatever play I do, I can guarantee Tezzeret. Yeah, we'll go baby Tezzeret. We'll go baby Tezzeret. Get our treasure token. Then I could just Manifold Key instead of treasure mapping and scrying again. Yeah, I'll Manifold Key because I know that I can cast big Tezzeret next turn either way. What is the ultimate on this one? You get an ultimate that makes one of your artifacts a 5/5 every turn. Just permanently. That's pretty funny. Not the greatest ultimate, but that's a fun one. Does it only target non-creature artifacts? No, any artifacts, so we can make our Thopters 5/5 flyers every turn. That's pretty good. Okay, so we have 6 artifacts on the board for Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge. So if they don't blow up any of our artifacts here, once we get a Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge on the board, they're going to lose 6 life each turn, and we're going to gain 6 life each turn, which is going to be busted. They are on a blue deck, though, so they could absolutely just hold up mana for a counterspell on Tezzeret. It looks like the play is immediately going to be Dragon Turtle, which is going to lock down their Dragon Turtle and our creature. Going to lock down our Thopter. Alright, they can poke Tezzeret all they want. I'm not, as cute as the ultimate is, I'm not really banking on that here. Just getting these Ethereum cells for value or being able to kill their creatures is nice here. And I can just kill a Lonis. That seems worth it. Every time they get creatures, they get clues. They can use those clues to play cards out of our library. Yeah, I think I'm going to kill Lonis here. So we can play Tezzeret, get a Thopter, play Metalwork Colossus, get a Thopter. And use the other Tezzerets to get rid of Lonis, and then I have more than enough blockers to protect the small Tezzeret. Beam their face. I'm definitely not blocking with Spinner, so we send it in. They're down to 15. We pass the turn. 34 life to 15 life. Huge stuff from Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge there, but huge stuff from Ethereum Spinner, really. Giving us all these Thopters to be able to make attacks like that. And to juice up the affinity, juice up the amount of damage Tezzeret is outputting. There's a Marite of the Frost, probably going to be an additional Dragon Turtle here. Certainly is. Gonna lock down the Metalwork Colossus and their Dragon Turtle. Oh, Dragon Turtle's an elemental dragon? What? Oh, it's a changeling. Nice. So it triggers Risen Reef and they draw an additional card. So I've got the chump blockers here, so easy chumps. We get to even kill the Risen Reef and then chump Corlessa. Here comes a 2-mana Jin-Gitaxias. That's going to be pretty sweet.
Your end is near.
2-mana Jin-Gitaxias. It's a thing, and then I get to get double Hedron Archive here. Which will give me a lot of card draw. So I think I'll play this land because I've got a lot of card draw from the double Hedron Archive anyway. Beam my opponent in the face for 1 million.
Don't you see?
Hit for 3 and they're down to 2 life. And that's going to do it. Just cast some really massive stuff with Tezzeret while shooting them in the face for 1 million each turn. Huge stuff for us. Alright, we are against the first sliver this game, which is a terrifying deck. It's going to give all of their slivers Cascade, which is a busted mechanic. That means whenever they cast one, they reveal cards from the top of their library until they reveal a card that costs less, and they cast that as well. So they just dump 1 million slivers onto the board really quickly, and every sliver gives all of the other slivers whatever abilities it has. So a really aggressive deck. They're on the play as well, so this could be a rough time for us. I don't have any islands in this hand, so I'm going to get this Castle Vantress out of the way while it's guaranteed to come to play tapped. Alright, let's drop Inventor's Fair, get the Guardian Idol down to start ramping up a little. Oh my god, we hit our Sundering Titan in the 5-color matchup. If we can get Tezzeret down quick enough here. I think I'm even going to Stonecoil Serpent so that I have higher affinity for artifacts. It's one of the really nice things about the Stonecoil Serpent is its flexibility here, and also protection from multicolored solid in the matchup. But the flexibility of being able to cast it after you have a Tezzeret out as a just ridiculously big creature, and also being able to cast it before, just to add to your whole affinity for artifact stuff. So in case they have any haste slivers, I'm just going to hold back here so that I can block with Stonecoil Serpent and protect Tezzeret, because Tezzeret is going to be ridiculous here. So here's the first sliver. They have 4 of the 5 land types. I'll have to blow up one of my own lands with Sundering Titan, but Sundering Titan should win us the game here. Ooh, Tybalt's Trickery. Uh-oh. Kind of weird build is this? Tybalt's Trickery deck. So they counter first sliver to play Beanstalk Giant? No, they counter... Oh, they hit Throes of Chaos? I don't know what's going on here. They've got a lot of fancy stuff going on. Okay, so they do resolve the first sliver, but we're just gonna go for the freebie here. The Sundering Titan. Plains, Island, Swamp, Mountain, Forest. Submit 5. Sorry, 5-color deck. There you have it. Yeah, Sundering Titan's pretty nasty in the 5-color matchup, I would say. Alright, here we are on the play against Yorion Sky Nomad. We've got 2 mana only, but we have several mana rocks that are castable off of that 2 mana. So a definite keep here. Definitely want to draw some more lands. So our opponent's going to be a blue-white deck focused around getting as many different enter the battlefield effects going as possible. A Cold Steel on black, get the tapped mana rock out of the way. Yorion lets them exile any number of permanents they control, then bring them back onto the board. I could spend 2 mana for a Signet and play nothing else, or I could spend 4 and get another Metamorph mana rock here, which I think is what I want to try to do. This one on blue. My nice 3/3 Cold Steel Heart, my snow artifact creature. And I guess they just didn't hit lands, they're just going to scoop them up. Alright, we're against Volo, Guide to Monsters, which gets to duplicate pretty much every creature they cast if they've built their deck correctly, which is a very fun, very cool commander. We've got a pretty excellent start here. We have a dual land from Mistvault Bridge, and then we have our mana rocks starting on turn 2 to start ramping us up, as well as putting more artifacts on our board for our cards that care about that. And our opponent also has a turn 2 Guardian Idol. I think I would rather go for an Ornithopter of Paradise first. They're a green-blue deck that's going to be really creature-heavy, so I don't expect a ton of removal from them. They could definitely have Reclamation Sage-type creatures, though, that destroy an artifact when they hit the board. And I didn't even know Mana War was on Arena. That's pretty cool. And definitely works well in a Volo deck, a Jellyfish. Alright. So we don't get our mana ramp going just yet, then. I get to play an Artifact and an Emery here. I think I'll just recast the Ornithopter, play Emery. Stonecoil Serpent in the graveyard and Ethereum Spinner in the graveyard is a very good one to cast, giving us those Thopters every time we cast a mana value 4 or greater spell. Can really set up a lot of affinity. Just a lot of artifacts on the board. Verger's Gearhulk from our opponent's going to put a ton of +1/+1 counters wherever they want them. And they're going to make the Manowar a 4/4 Jellyfish, the Gearhulk a 6/6 Trample. We can also play the front half of Forgefire Automaton. This is a very cool card. Lets us return a creature with power less than its from the grave to the battlefield and have its power become this card's power. That way you can't, like, just keep doing it over and over and over. That being said, we've drawn a Crux of Fate, so I think I would rather try to establish a board state. That works well against a Wrath, so maybe we Hangerback Walker here. Probably what we do. We just play the Mana Rock, that's not going to be a creature. And then just play a 1/1 Hangerback Walker for chumps. And get ready to wipe the board with Crux of Fate. We'll Forgefire Automaton later after the board has been wiped. We'll start using that to bring everything back from grave slowly. There's Volo, Guide to Monsters. We'll see what's coming alongside him here. A 2-mana card, Fibblethip the Lost. That will draw them an additional card, but because it is legendary, one of them will die. Unless Volo is one of the new cards that gets around legendary? No. A lot of the new clone effects they've been making get around legendary now, which is kind of wild. We stop a lot more damage by blocking Manowar than Gearhulk, but since I'm going to Crux of Fate next turn anyway, I'll just block both. Stop as much damage as possible. There's a Thrix to play, but we're going to be on Crux of Fate, I believe. Send in one in the sky. Destroy all non-dragons. Give us some breathing room here. Volo's back, setting up for some great plays next turn, but here's a Mightstone and Weakstone to get rid of that Volo. Stop their doubling up, and get a Mana Rock for any artifacts that we play. Pretty great draw for us. We have 7 mana towards artifacts, so we can cast a full Phyrexian Fleshgorger or a full Forgefire Automaton. Both would be pretty sweet options. There's a Mesmerizing Benthid. Comes with some jellyfish, and it's a big hexproofing thing. Sure is. Elvish Mystic as well. Okay. Well, there's a Languish, but that won't kill the Benthid anyway. I think I would like to just drop an Automaton here. Play a 3-mana version. And then I have 4 mana up. Can't do anything else with that 4 mana, though. Can't Tezzeret. Alright, let's just hope they don't have the artifact removal for this thing. Start getting 8 power versions of stuff in our grave. Oh, God. Mind Flayer, I'm gonna have to Languish now. Kill the Mind Flayer. Thankfully they don't have the mana for the Swiftfoot Boots. We definitely Languish, and then I have 3 mana up. Only for artifact spells, though. So I have 4 mana for artifact spells after this. But Languish to get rid of Mind Flayer, get our Automaton back. And I'm at a low enough life total, I think I do just slam down a small Menace lifelink. Now next turn we do have the mana to go for Tezzeret. Drain our opponent for some life, try to get back into this game. Okay, there's a War Chief non-blitzed and a Merrileaf Pixie, so I'm not going to take any damage this turn, and I get to Forgefire something back from grave as an 8 power version of itself. 8 power Emery, 8 power Ornithopter, 8 power Spinner. Let's go Spinner here so we can get a wide board. Otawara to play. I'm going to go Tezzeret, I believe. And we can play Sundering Titan as well, but I just blow up one of my own lands, so that's not bad. Not terrible. Could use Tezzeret to return one of these. The Stonecoil or a Hangerback Walker and cast that instead. But I think I'm going for the life drain this turn. That seems pretty important to me. So choose Island, Forest, Swamp. And I'm just going to play this actually. And then just drain life here. Get back into the game. We are at 22. And I probably just sit behind all this stuff and try to just Tezzeret them a few turns in a row. There's an Organ Hoarder for them to dig for some outs to this, but they are out of cards in hand right now. They're only going to have whatever they draw off of the Organ Hoarder. And they're going to scoop them up. That's too much. They can't break through the board state, so Tezzeret just gives us that inevitability, draining them life every single turn, or letting us just start recasting more stuff from grave. And of course, without removal for the Automaton, we're going to keep getting 8 power versions of stuff in our grave, an 8 power Ornithopter and an Emery be the next two ones. Another game of Historic Brawl here against Liliana Wild Mage now, which is a mono red deck that can duplicate attacking creatures and involves rolling a lot of d20s, and if they roll well on these dice, they can get more than one duplicate of the creature, so it can be a pretty aggressive, pretty scary deck here, so I don't think it's going to be a super good matchup for us. Again, our deck's pretty slow with a 6 mana commander, but we'll do what we can here, see how it goes. If nothing else, we'll get to see some sweet stuff from this Liliana deck, I am sure. Kept a kind of slow hand here, a lot of 6 mana plays, but a lot of what we've got in the deck. So Guardian Idol turn 2, alright, at least they're not getting super aggressive, and we got a great draw this turn. I can just tap out for a Metamorph and get another Ornithopter. Actually should have just grabbed a Mistvault Bridge, that was loose. I forgot about my Artifact land, that would have been a better card to duplicate. Or even their Guardian Idol, just something that isn't a creature so it doesn't die to red burn spells. They could even just like Brotherhood's End here and just blow up both of our cards. Torbran, Thane of Redfell. Alright, well that's about what I expected here. Very aggro red stuff. I'm just going to drop an Ugin and blow that up. If they have a haste creature, they get to kill Ugin, but we need to kill Torbran pretty badly. I'd rather kill Torbran than just play a Wurmcoil and try to block things currently, especially because Wurmcoil we can cast for free very soon. Tezzeret is going to reduce its cost by 3, making it a 1 mana spell if Ugin is still on the board. Alright, Rapacious Dragon is not a haster. We've got a shot here. Ooh, Bitter Reunion could give it haste, but I think they're 1 mana away from doing that. I think they've already played land this turn. If they haven't, they could go land, sack the Reunion, kill Ugin, but they do not have that mana. So we can go Tezzeret. I'll have the 1 mana to cast Wurmcoil. Oh, this is going to be huge, yes. We go Tezzeret. I've got the 1 mana from this Ornithopter to cast this Wurmcoil. Then plus Tezzeret now. This Ugin is just going to give me a 2/2. That's unfortunately not an artifact, so I can't also cast the Meteor Golem. So they can definitely kill my Ugin with the Rapacious Dragon, because we just ended 1 mana away from also playing Meteor Golem that turn. But we're still doing pretty great here, all things considered. And as soon as this 2/2 dies, we have a River's Rebuke in our hand. Pretty nice sorcery here. Not super great against their board when they have a Bitter Reunion down, though. They've got a Zephyr Boots. They have the mana to play Liliana and use Bitter Reunion, but They don't have the mana to play Liliana, give her flying with the Zephyr Boots, and give her haste with Bitter Reunion. So they're going to play a Cavalier of Flame, digging through their deck, discarding any number of cards and drawing that many cards. Discard 2, draw 2. They did discard an Abrade in there, which I am a fan of. Do not blow up my fun artifact nonsense. It's probably not fun for my opponent, but I enjoy my big artifact nonsense. Ooh, a cheap Fleshgorger. Just go cheap Fleshgorger. Cheap Meteor Golem here. Hope the blocker and get in. Yeah, they're gonna just scoop them up there. 3 mana Fleshgorger, 2 mana Meteor Golem's a little too rude for their tastes, and we're gonna be moving on to the next game. Here we are against another Slivers deck, luckily with a board wipe in the opening hand, so we will definitely keep because of that. We also have all 3 colors of mana, which is nice. Oops, trying to play the castle here. All 2 colors of mana. I'm losing my mind. Ornithopter into Foundry Inspector. Skyclave Relic. How much is it to kick? 3 mana to kick? I need 5 mana up. I'll have 4 right now. Yeah, so if I get a Foundry Inspector on the board, then I'll just need to top deck an untapped land, and I could kick the Relic next turn, so that's what I'm going to go for here. A kicked Relic would be excellent here. It gives us 3 mana rocks, which means 3 artifacts on the board. Excellent. 3 artifacts on the board for Tezzeret, as well as a ton of mana for whatever we need it. Whatever we need to spend it on. So they're on a Guildgate version of the first Sliver decks. They might have Maze's End, I believe, has been put on Arena. Try to get all... Well, there's more than 10 gates, but try to get 10 gates onto the board to just immediately win. I think I just slam down Tezzeret here and do my thing. Let's play a Stonecoil first. We've got 1, 2 mana, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cost reduction. So I believe I do this for 7, but I'm going to try 8 in case I miscounted and see if it lets me. I did miscount. It is 8. 3 mana, 8/8 protection from multicolored. Let's go. I probably miscounted because the Inspector gives me the double cost reduction. 1 from it being an artifact and 1 from its ability that automatically reduces that. So here goes first Sliver. Oh. Okay, it's just another Tybalt's Trickery deck, I guess. Cast 1 guaranteed spell every game. What is their guaranteed spell they're trying to win with? Cultivator Colossus? Oh, it's Cultivator Colossus for Maze's End? Okay, that's pretty cool, but I don't think Maze's End wins the turn you play it. You have to survive 1 more turn. So we basically have 1 turn to kill them. Alright, so first Sliver combo it is this time. Which it might have been last time. Because they did also Tybalt's Trickery, but this one actually has the Tybalt's Trickery for the guaranteed Cultivator Colossus. I think we can probably kill them next turn, if the plan is to Maze's End us. So if they're at 13 life, I'm pretty sure I can kill them. I guess no, because I need to find a way to get the Cultivator Colossus out of the way. If it weren't for that, I could definitely kill them, because I can hit them for 8 with the Serpent and drain them for a ton off of Tezzeret. So I guess it depends on what we draw here, if we can kill them in time. I'm gonna go ahead and edit this out. We're gonna skip ahead to when they have no cards in deck. And the Maze's End on board. Alright, they have stopped. Oh, they gain. Oh. Okay, well, they definitely win. They've got all the life gain lands as well that I wasn't thinking of. We could have actually hit them down to 1 with everything we had on board, because we could have activated Blinkmoth Nexus, played Hanger Backwalker, then activated Tezzeret to shoot them for like a ton. We could have hit them down to 1 life, but because they have all the life gain lands, they do definitely just win here. Because we can't stop Maze's End from triggering. So that's it. I guess we'll hit as hard as we can for fun. Should think. Not sure how to do. I think it's just, yeah, it's just make a hanger back. Oh, I forgot about the cost reduction. I'm a doofus. Not that it would matter, because that thing's not going to have haste anyway. Do that. I guess maybe with enough cost reduction playing it really big, then Cruxifating might end up with more artifacts than otherwise, but I don't think it will. So they block Stonecoil, take 4. I'm supposed to shoot them with Tezzeret first, because I'm about to lose 1 artifact. So I would have hit them 1 harder if we Tezzereted before combat, but it would still not be nearly enough damage, since we can't get the Colossus out of the way. I think if we could, though, we would have gotten close-ish. Yeah, hit them down to like 7 or something, but yeah, that is a game. Here we are against another First Sliver deck. They could be that weird Cascade Tybalt's Trickery combo deck, or they could be just a Slivers aggro deck. Either are an exceptional matchup for us, and we do not have a black source, which is awkward. I think I'm going to mulligan this because of the lack of a black source. There we go, we've got a Fetid Pools now. Pretty slow hand though, so they're the combo deck, they definitely get to combo out. And if they're just Slivers aggro, we'll also have a bad time with this kind of slow hand here. Alright, they're just setting up some mana, all good. We'll drop our Relic of Legends and a Witching Well. Scry 2. Languish. Oh, it's probably a good draw. If we got land for next turn, we're going to want to land after that. Yeah, I'll keep the Languish. Such a hard choice against First Sliver because the First Sliver can be a combo deck or an aggro deck. But if it is the aggro deck, Languish is going to be a good draw, and it looks like it is. They are actually playing a Sliver here, playing the Lava Belly Sliver. Let's go ahead and Metamorph our Relic of Legends, I think, for more mana. We'll have to languish away this relic later, most likely, but for now we are interested in ramping up some more. Blur Sliver to give all the Slivers haste, but they can't really attack into the 3/3. So our Relic of Legends Hulking Metamorph putting in some work for us. I can afford to cast Tezzeret without tapping this relic, which I will definitely do. We've got 3 artifacts, making the Metalwork Colossus cost 3 less. It's going to be 4 mana. Definitely can't cast it yet, but setting it up for the future is nice.
I take what I need.
Tezzeret could definitely get killed by them casting First Sliver here, because they are going to have a big hasting 7/7 as well as whatever they're going to cascade into. But we have Relic of Legends to chump block the 7/7, the 3/3 version of Relic of Legends that is, and then I don't really want to languish until they use the First Sliver and get another Sliver onto the board. So I think I'm going to wait here and relic them next turn. Alright, so here we go. We're definitely going to Languish next turn. The question is whether or not our Tezzeret's going to survive this attack. Oh, Lava Belly Sliver targets players or planeswalkers, so that's going to be a no. I can chump block the first sliver, but everything else will hit Tezzeret for exactly 6, and Tezzeret will die.
Pain is temporary.
But they do have to attack Tezzeret with everybody if they want to kill Tezzeret here. And the fact that the first sliver has resolved means that... Ooh, interesting. I was going to say the fact that the first sliver has resolved means even if I Languish, I'm in a pretty bad spot because every sliver they play is still going to cascade. Oh, ho, ho. Well, I was in a pretty bad spot. Now, I'm very tempted to do something else here. White, blue, black, red. I don't kill a forest, but they're down to 1 land. Do that instead of Languishing. Yeah, I can't do both. Alright. Best card in the matchup. White, blue, black, red. And that's a 7/10 to block their 8/8. Sundering Titan is the rudest. I'm actually surprised it's even allowed, because I think it's banned in regular Commander, but so is Paradox Engine, and I get to do all kinds of stupid Paradox Engine things in Historic Brawl. My thought process is if it's a 1v1, obviously it's a competitive game, you should expect that your opponent's always going to try to win at whatever it costs, so there shouldn't be any banned like Armageddon style cards. If somebody's got a full board wipe or whatever, a full land wipe, go for it. It's a competitive game. Win by any costs, be as rude as possible. This Languish, speaking of, is going to be quite rude. Can't afford Metalwork Colossus afterwards. It's fine. I should have attacked first. Actually, no, I still want this to block the first sliver.
Sleeper agents walk among us. I require you should just concede.
That's incredible. I must not have been paying attention to Tezzeret's voice lines often, but he literally has a "you should just concede" voice line. That's so tremendously rude.
Every power stone fuels.
Actually incredible. Actually incredible.
Don't you see? You have already lost.
Well, props to our opponent for sticking it out here. I definitely would have scooped as soon as I got Sundering Titan, but they're going for it here. Nothing else to just being polite, letting their opponent finish it off. And they are going to scoop them up here. Again, Sundering Titan is just brutal against 5-color decks. The one-sided Armageddon. This round we're going to be against Hulking Master Wizard, which lets them dig for a card of whatever non-creature spell type they cast out of the top 5. This round we're going to be against Hulking Master Wizard, which can be a combo-y or control-y sort of deck, where like if they cast a sorcery in their end step, they get to look at the top 5 and grab another sorcery, put it into their hand. If they cast an enchantment, look at the top 5, grab another enchantment, put it into their hand. So they can try to loop like extra turn spells and stuff because they get to keep digging for them so far. This hand's awkward. There's a lot of expensive stuff, but I'm still going to keep it for the tail's end to keep them off their commander. And we're chilling. I also love Vidalcan Archmage. Just really, really like it. And we can Archmage and then copy the Archmage with Metamorph, which could be really spicy as well. That could be something else. Alright, we are definitely going to tax their commander here, make it so they don't get to play it till turn 5. Alright, we've got a Phyrexian Metamorph. Make a Brawl with that. I'd rather just hold off on that and play it after I've got an Archmage down. Here's a Consider from our opponent to surveil 1 and draw a card. Also, Brawl making their instants and sorceries cost 1 less means they could be more of a stormy kind of Hurkle deck. That's a thing that could happen. Looks like they have Artifact as well, Inventor's Fair, Renegade Map, and Thought Monitor with Affinity for Artifacts, so they're just focused on all those non-creature types. See if an Archmage resolves. I'll be pretty sad if it doesn't, but it's definitely my best play for the turn. And there's the counterspell. At least getting them to cast a lot of their non-creature spells before they have a Hurkle on the board is pretty good. I guess Hurkle only triggers during their end steps, so it doesn't actually work with counter spells, but... Okay. Got nothing that can kill Hurkle till I have 10 mana for Ulamog. Just double up some mana rocks here seems pretty worth it. Signet into Metamorph. I don't even have to pay life to do that. Or I can Signet... Oh, they're both Metamorphs. I just realized I'm not being super clear. I can Signet into either Metamorph. This one without paying life, and this one will be a 3/3 body if I do that, which means they could kill it, but... Even if they kill it, I have 6 mana for Tezzeret next turn. Yeah, I think I'll go for the 3/3 body here. Like Tezzeret, if we're ramping into anything with Tezzeret, we're ramping into Ulamog, so I don't need to ramp at a 7/7 Arcane Signet. Oracle of the Alpha. The power 9 has been shuffled into our opponent's deck. Pretty good when you get to tutor around for it. Ooh, and Liberator. Liberator's pretty sweet here. An instant speed Ulamog's always fun. They're probably countering Tezzeret here, but I have nothing that's going to get them to not hold up a counterspell for Tezzeret. Especially when they have the literal best counterspell in Historic Brawl. Counter a commander for 1 mana. Well, I can still play Tezzeret next turn if I hit a land. Alright, we're going to get hit by the Oracle of the Alpha, and they are going to scry 1. Languish is the draw. That's actually kind of exciting. I mean, if nothing else, it almost definitely draws a counterspell. Black 2 for that. I think I'm going to go for Metamorph on Signet first and then Languish. So then I can use the Signet mana for Metamorph to Languish. Alright, let's see. Show me the next counterspell. Unfortunately for us, our opponent's deck isn't actually a Hurkle Master Wizard deck, it's a Brawl deck in disguise. That is the 3rd counterspell. They have drawn 0 cards off of Hurkle Master Wizard, they have drawn 3 or 4 off Brawl. So that is super unfortunate. Yep, Epiphany also often just a game ender, just a winning card immediately. Narset? Ew. Narset's pretty gross if we're trying to do any card draw. Narset will stop us. Alright, now they're gonna make up for all the lost turns of Hurkle and draw a lot of cards here. They get to dig for a Planeswalker, a Sorcery, and an instant with Hurkle. But they are tapped out from any counterspells. Never mind. Never mind. They drew their literal Black Lotus, the best card ever printed from their Oracle of the Alphas here. And they have Pact of Negation off Narset. Alright, well, that is pretty much definitely game. Still really feels more like I lost to Brawl than Hurkle, because we've basically already lost, and this is the first time Hurkle's actually going to trigger. And we really just lost from all the counter spells, which they just tutored for another off Narset, which is much more of a Brawl thing than a Hurkle thing, but certainly lost hardcore either way. And that was one of the matchups I was talking about during deck building that is pretty bad counterspell-based matchups. When your Planeswalker, when your commander is a 6-mana card, a 6-mana Planeswalker, you're just going to have a brutal matchup against counterspells. It's the easiest thing in the world to hold up a counterspell when your opponent has 6 mana. You just already got all the mana set up at that point to cast a 3 or 4 mana spell while still holding up a counter. That's just a very rough time for decks like this. Ooh, we're against a shrine deck. Goshintai of Life's Origin. 5 color shrines. Seems pretty cool. We're just doing some setup turns here. Kind of interested in trying to hold off Tel Relic. Kind of interested in trying to hold off on Relic until I have 6 mana, but I don't even know if I'm going to hit a land next turn, and if I play Relic here, I know I can Metamorph the Relic the turn after this. I do need to keep getting mana, so I think I have to just play Relic, unfortunately, unkicked. If I knew that the top, 3 cards were lands, I probably would just not play Relic, but we don't know when we're going to get our next lands. Opponent's got some very fancy lands here. And Goshintai of Ancient Wars is the first play. Well, we did hit our land drop here. Could Karn into some Power Stones, but I think I would rather just Metamorph the Relic, have an indestructible 3/3 that can also tap for mana. And because the Relic can tap for any mana or mana to cast any spells, we can cast Tezzeret next turn. Whereas if we just played Karn, the Power Stones cannot cast non-artifacts. I guess they must have... Oh, that's brutal. Exile removal for our indestructible 3/3. Rough. I guess they must have never made a fancy version of the World Tree, because their opponent has the fancy versions of all the other lands. It's kind of wild. I would have expected there to be a fancy version of the World Tree on Arena by now. Alright, well I can Relic of Legends, hold up a Tail's End, and if I don't cast it, I just cast a Liberator. So really easy to hold up the counterspell here. Gifted Paradise, well that resolves, we cannot counter that with Tail's End. Tail's End is strictly for countering commanders, slowing your opponent down a little bit. Sanctum of Tranquil Light, that's pretty good. I could actually counter that because it is legendary, but I think I'm just keeping this for the Goshintai of Life's Origin. Drop our Liberator down. Draw for turn. 3 artifacts on the board, so Karn's going to cost 1 mana, so I can go Tezzeret and Karn, then make a Power Stone, then plus Tezzeret. But then I don't hold up Tail's End for the Goshintai. One mana away from holding up Tail's End, I think I have to do that, so I just Karn for now. I guess I just Karn here. I guess I could cast Karn at instant speed, but I can't use Karn's abilities at instant speed anyway. That wouldn't actually really work super well. Alright, our opponent has a huge life total advantage, so I think I just want to try to leave Liberator back to block their Goshintai of Ancient Wars. At least force them to tap it down with Sanctum of Tranquil Light. Okay, I'm going to try to counter that. Is going to work. Going to be 6 mana for them to play it now. They can definitely play it next turn, but we've slowed them down a little bit. Now we've got another turn of setup from this Karn. Aw, Liberator's dead. That's super sad. At least Karn is not dead. We've got a Takenuma. Probably keep that in hand. So Tezzeret, I'll still have the mana for Workshop Elders if I have enough artifacts. At 3 right now, I'll have a 4th. I won't. Workshop Elders will cost a blue and 2. I can have a blue and 1 if I play Takenuma. I think I still play Tezzeret.
Tell me you're not impressed.
Just minusing Karn instead, though. Takenuma could pick up Liberator to my hand. Which is fine. I'm just going to play the land, though, and then I think I'm just going to use Karn's minus.
We must conceal our plans.
Well, none of these are great draws right now. Guess Spinner is the best draw of them. Then shoot the face. Or I could pick up Liberator, play it for free.
More power.
I'd rather plus Tezzeret, get him out of reach of Goshintai, because this can shoot Planeswalkers, right? Yeah, players or Planeswalkers. Alright, so there goes Karn.
Failure haunts me still.
And here comes Goshintai of Life's Origin. They have 4 shrines on the board. Really hoping to find like a Languish or something to deal with this stuff, otherwise the shrines are just going to go crazy. I have no card draw, so I'm kind of screwed. Play a lot of artifacts here. We go Ethereum Spinner. 1 mana Metalwork Colossus. 1 mana Workshop Elders. Minus Tezzeret for Liberator. But that's it. I would rather just plus and shoot for a bunch. Make a flying indestructible 4/4 relic. Attack with it. Alright. They can do all kinds of Goshintai stuff, but now even if they kill Tezzeret, which they can do just with Goshintai of Ancient Wars activated ability, even if they kill Tezzeret, we've got a really good board state. They need to kill some more stuff to try to survive. Archon of Sun's Grace is a pretty great card for them. That's going to give them a 2/2 flying lifelink every time they play an enchantment, and there is an enchantment. They've got some lifelinking chump blocks, if nothing else. Shoot Tezzeret for lethal in the end step, I'm assuming is what's going to happen here. Oh, they don't quite get there. They're at 4 out of 5. Never mind. Thought they would have enough there. But Tezzeret being a +2 is just so brutal. Ooh, Ephemerate on Goshintai of Life's Origin's pretty good. That's really disgusting with the Archon too. Get tons of triggers there. Well, I can't minus Tezzeret now, so I have to just plus. And I kind of have to just play this land. I guess I should have kept that Takenuma. I would be able to do something here.
My artifacts give them strength.
3/4 bunch of 2/2 lifelinkers. We're definitely sending the 10/10 in. Forcing a chump here. I think we just send all that in. It's actually just good for us if they kill Tezzeret, because then we can recast at the higher loyalty. Should use the minus or something else if we want. Alright, clear clear out a bunch of the chumpers. But Ephemerate rebounds, and they're going to get a ton more because they're going to get 2 more Constellation triggers for Archon automatically. Now all of these shrines on the board to really add up on their Goshintai of Ancient Wars. And Sanctum of Tranquil Light. This doesn't trigger in the end step, does it? Okay, thank goodness. This is one that triggers in the upkeep. They do get to double up all their shrine triggers, though, which is devastating. Yeah, and they've got 5 2/2 lifelinkers. I think they've got there. This was a really close game, though. So we did get a pretty monstrous board state that, like, got to put them down to, like, 7. But then they just got a million lifelinkers. Super close. I mean, I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 artifacts. I could somehow have 3 more artifacts, they're dead. But probably just hitting lands here. Sure am. I guess that bounces a card. Shut off the lifelink. These only have lifelink as long as the Archon's on board, so Otawara to bounce the lifelink from their board is kind of the best I can do. I'm not going to attack with this relic because I need it to cast Tezzeret. Definitely attacking with the indestructible one, though. Pick up any enchantment from their grave to the battlefield. Luckily, they don't have one in their grave yet. Whoa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can bounce one of those to kill all that and keep the Colossus on board, but Colossus I can just put back in my hand. Sack 2 artifacts, put it back in my hand. I guess I can't put it back in hand immediately. I think I would rather just bounce the Archon, hit them for 4, they're down to 5 life, and they don't have lifelink on board. Yeah, I think I'm still just bouncing the Archon here. Now I kind of wish I attacked with this Relic of Legends, but if they double blocked that, that would have been disastrous for me. Okay, they are at 5 life, and I've got a Tezzeret. I'm not going to be able to afford to cast this if I sack anything right now, so I'm just going to hold it in grave for now. They're at 5 life, and I have a Tezzeret I can cast next turn to shoot them for 5 if they don't get any life this turn. So that could do it. Oh, yeah, but Sanctum of All grabs any shrine. So they can grab the life gain shrine and just gain 50,000 life. Yep, that's 24 life. That's game. So close, but so far away. If I had enough mana to use Otawara and play Tezzeret, we could have gotten the win there, but that would have been an exorbitant amount of mana. That would have been a lot. But yeah, then also the turns before, if they just didn't have Archon, we would have really won there earlier in the game. Close matchup. We did get to see the Shrine deck do some nasty stuff there, so pretty cool nonetheless. Well, that was definitely quite a few games of Historic Brawl. I think that is going to be the end of the video for today for me. We're going to open up that deck list so you can take one last peek at it. If you're interested in seeing some Tezzeret, big high mana artifact nonsense. That's what the deck is all about. We certainly got to do some pretty explosive nonsense. We definitely played a very rude amount of Sundering Titans today. But yeah, that is going to end today's video. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to send you more in your recommended feed. You can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below to hang out with me in real time. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon account in the link in the description below. Other than that, as always, housekeeping out of the way. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.